The Galactic Council chamber hummed with 1,000 voices, each species represented by beings who had crossed the void between stars. At the center podium, a towering Crithian ambassador gestured with 4 arms toward holographic footage of human colonies. Laughter rippled through the assembly, sharp clicks, guttural rumbles, melodic chimes of derision. "Observe," the Crithian announced, "how easily they break. Their bones shatter, their skin tears, their lungs collapse in vacuum without protection. Yet they call themselves spacefarers." The footage showed human settlements under siege, defenders falling back under alien assault, families evacuating through emergency tunnels. An elder Vextheri rose, her crystalline features refracting the chamber's light. "The humans are a peace species. Archival data confirms they lost every major engagement in the first contact wars. They survive only because we permit it, because they are useful for trade, for labor, for entertainment." A young Draconid cadet in the observation deck whispered to his mentor, "Then why do they persist? Why haven't they gone extinct like the other weak species?" The mentor's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. Across the galaxy, on a forgotten outpost near the Terminus Belt, a human soldier stood watch. His name didn't matter. None of their names seemed to matter to the galaxy anymore. Scars traced patterns across his knuckles, hidden beneath regulation gloves. His eyes, dark and cold as deep space, tracked movement in the market below where alien merchants conducted their business. A group of Crithian traders shoved a human merchant aside, scattering his wares across the station floor. The soldier's jaw tightened, but he remained still, silent, watching, always watching. Nearby, archaeologists transmitted their latest findings from Earth ruins that predated recorded history. Weapons that suggested a civilization built for conquest. Star charts showing territories that should have been impossible for primitive humans to reach. The lead researcher, a hopeful woman with dirt under her fingernails, spoke excitedly into her recorder. "These structures indicate a martial culture of extraordinary sophistication. The energy signatures suggest weapons capable of." Her transmission was cut short. Galactic authorities classified the findings as primitive mythology, not worthy of further investigation. But in the shadows of the Council's classified archives, an old Vextheri commander reviewed the same data with trembling hands. He opened a channel to his superior, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't understand what humans are. Our ancestors knew. They fled Earth for a reason. The humans aren't weak, they're dormant gods, and we've been poking them with sticks." The attack came without warning. The Zothic Dominion, apex predators who had conquered 40 star systems in a single generation, descended upon the agricultural colony of New Meridian. Their ships blotted out the sun, their warriors renowned for leaving no survivors. Human civilians ran for the shelters. Soldiers fell back in organized retreat. Across the galaxy, aliens watched the broadcasts with satisfaction, proof again of human weakness. But in the deep places beneath New Meridian's surface, something stirred. Ancient bunkers, sealed for generations, responded to distress signals embedded in human DNA. Lights flickered to life in chambers that predated the colony itself. Defense systems activated, their AI core speaking in dead languages that living humans no longer remembered but somehow understood. Above ground, a Zothic warrior cornered a human soldier in a collapsed habunit. The warrior, 3 meters of armored fury, laughed as it raised its plasma cutter. "Your species dies today." Little, the human's head snapped up, and for a moment, his eyes reflected light that shouldn't exist, a faint golden glow from within. His hand moved faster than the Zothic S-enhanced optics could track, catching the plasma cutter, crushing it. The warrior staggered back as the human rose, strength flooding through muscles that had been merely human moments before. The soldier didn't understand what was happening to him, only that something ancient in his blood had responded to the threat, to the fear, to the desperation of his species. The Zothic warrior's final transmission showed footage of the human moving like liquid lightning, each strike precise, devastating, impossible. In emergency medical facilities across human space, scientists scrambled to understand the phenomenon. Blood samples showed genetic sequences activating that had been dormant for millennia, codes written into humanity's DNA like a sleeping program waiting for the right input. A xenobiologist with shaking hands pulled up comparative scans. "These markers, they're artificial, engineered. Humanity wasn't evolved, we were designed." The implications crashed through scientific communities like a tidal wave. Ancient databases, long dismissed as corrupted, suddenly made terrible sense when properly translated. The Vexillary archive spoke of a time before the current galactic order, when a species of warforged beings ruled vast territories with absolute efficiency. They had been called by many names, but one translation appeared repeatedly: the Dormant Ones. Records showed how these beings had chosen to lock away their own power, to forget their nature, to sleep as ordinary mortal creatures rather than continue their eternal wars. The trigger for reawakening, the archives warned, was persecution, repeated attempts by lesser species to exploit or destroy them. On 17 different human worlds, similar awakenings began. Civilians discovered reflexes they'd never trained, strength that defied biological limits, tactical awareness that seemed to download directly into their consciousness. A child on New Meridian picked up her father's rifle, assembled it with expert precision despite never having seen one before, and put 3 rounds through a Zothic warrior's armor from 400 meters. Her mother watched in horror and pride as something in her daughter's eyes suggested this wasn't the first time she'd held a weapon. Not truly. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session, their earlier laughter replaced by mounting dread. Representatives who had mocked humanity now demanded action. "We must strike now," a Crithian war chief urged, "before the awakening completes. Once they remember what they are, no force in the galaxy can stop them." But even as they debated, human forces were already moving. The retreat had been strategic, drawing Zothic forces into kill zones designed by military minds that now operated with crystalline clarity. Human fleets that had seemed aged and decrepit suddenly deployed weapons systems whose designs appeared in engineering databases without explanation, as if humanity had always known how to build them, had simply chosen not to remember. A single human general stood before the council, having demanded an audience. He wore no armor, carried no visible weapons, yet every guard in the chamber felt their combat instincts screaming to run. His presence radiated something that predator species recognized on a fundamental level: apex status. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, calm, absolutely certain. "You will cease all military operations in human space. You will return territories taken during our dormancy. You will acknowledge that your ancestors fled Earth for a reason we let them." The council chamber erupted in outrage, but the general simply waited. Behind him, holographic displays showed what was happening across human space. Zothic fleets crumbling before human counterattacks. Warriors that had never known defeat, fleeing in terror from human soldiers who moved with the precision of machines and the adaptability of organic life perfected for war. The flashbacks came unbidden to humans across the galaxy, genetic memories surfacing like dreams. They saw themselves ruling star empires, not through conquest but through the simple fact that no species could oppose them. They saw their ancestors growing weary of endless conflict, of being weapons rather than beings, of perfection that demanded constant vigilance. The choice had been unanimous: seal the power, lock the knowledge, become truly mortal and vulnerable, give evolution a chance to make them something more than war gods. But the locks had always been designed to open if humanity faced extinction, a failsafe written into every chromosome. The repeated attempts by galactic powers to exploit human weakness, to take human worlds, to treat humanity as inferiors, had triggered the ancient protocols one by one. Now, the awakening cascaded through billions of humans, and they remembered. In shipyards above Mars, vessels that had been decommissioned for decades suddenly came online, their hulls transforming from rust to radiant alloy as nanoforges activated. Human engineers worked with hands that knew designs from before the age of forgetting. The ships that emerged weren't just warships, they were art, terror, and absolute capability merged into forms that made alien military analysts weep. When human fleets moved against the Zothic Dominion's core territories, there was no battle. The predator species that had terrorized 40 systems took one look at what approached and broadcast unconditional surrender. Their warriors, bred for combat and cruelty, knelt in their command centers as human vessels passed overhead in formations that somehow seemed more like hunting patterns than military formations. The human commander of the fleet opened a channel to the Zothic throne world. His face filled every screen, every holographic display, unavoidable. "We never forgot," he said, his voice carrying a weight that resonated in the bones of every listener. "We only rested and you woke us." But then something else showed in his expression. not the cold fury of a war god, but something the awakening had preserved: human mercy, human choice. We could erase you. Our ancestors could have exterminated every species that arose after we slept. Instead, we chose to let the galaxy live, to grow, to become something we could coexist with. The Zothic Empress, who had never bowed to any being, lowered her head. "What do you want from us?" the human commander considered. Around him, his crew awaited orders. Crew who could glass the planet below with a thought, who had the power to remake the galaxy. Dismantle your war machine. Protect your civilians. Learn that strength doesn't mean domination. He paused. "We're not returning as conquerors. We're returning as shepherds, whether the galaxy wants them or not." Across galactic space, the restructuring began. Human fleets dismantled military installations, but left civilian infrastructure intact. Former enemies were given clear terms: join the new order or face isolation, not annihilation. The Galactic Council dissolved itself, its members acknowledging that their authority had always been an illusion permitted by human absence. In its place rose the Human Accord, with seats reserved for every species, but humans held the final word on matters of war. In military academies on a dozen worlds, alien cadets now studied human history with religious intensity. They learned of Earth's bloody past, of humans warring against themselves for millennia before finally achieving peace. They learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't there. Dormant warguard Geneticsit was their choice to seek something beyond endless conflict. An old Vex Thori, the same commander who had tried to warn the Council, taught a class of young officers. The humans call it HFY, humanity. Fuck yeah. But you must understand what that truly means. It's not about superiority. It's about choosing to be kind when you could be cruel. Choosing mercy when you have the power for absolute vengeance. The dormant gods didn't awaken to dominate. They awakened to protect. On New Meridian, the child who had fired that impossible shot played with other children, human and alien alike. Her mother watched from a doorway, seeing the golden glow that occasionally flickered in her daughter's eyes when she concentrated. The girl would never be fully human in the old sense, none of them would. But perhaps that was the point. A human elder addressed a gathering of species representatives, his weathered face projected across 1,000 worlds. "We were never weak," he said simply. "We were waiting to see if the galaxy could grow without us, if peace could be achieved through cooperation rather than domination. You forced our hand with your cruelty, but we're choosing how we wield that hand." Behind him, Earth rotated in the viewport, blue and green and precious. Our ancestors slept so their descendants could be more than weapons. We won't let that dream die. The camera pulled back, showing stars reflecting in his eyes, that faint golden glow that marked the awakening. Across the galaxy, humans stood watch at their posts, worked in their labs, raised their children, lived their lives. But now they did so with full knowledge of what they were, what they had been, what they chose to be. The age of humanity's dormancy had ended. The age of the returned war gods had begun. And the galaxy, for the first time in eons, knew true peace, not from the absence of power, but from power wielded with wisdom and restraint.